Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. I'm Brandon Ware. You're watching Angel 65, my channel for all things music related, music reviews, and music posts. And this is Chapter 7 of Pink Floyd Deep Dive, the final chapter where we talk about the later years box set, which I finally managed to get hold of at a somewhat reasonable price. Imported from Japan, and so it came with a couple extra things. This is a little lenticular. At first I thought it was a mouse pad, but it doesn't really work as that, so I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's a cool little piece of artwork with foam on the back of just the cover. Here is the cover itself. We got Pink Floyd, the later years on the spine. On the back there's this little torus of lyrics. And then on this side of the spine we've got this emblem that is like the trademark of the box set. Big old clamshell box. So when we open it up, the first thing we see is there's the hype sticker from the bag that it came in. We've got these little cardboard spacers which you have to take out in order to access everything below them. On top is this little strip with concert programs and what have you, but it actually came with this as well, which is like a little Japanese information booklet with a list of the content and a timeline and stuff, which I haven't bothered to actually translate, but it was cool. I wasn't expecting that. Tour dates and stuff at the back. And while this is very cool, it's kind of a pain in the neck to deal with. We have the 3 concert programs and the lyric book all wrapped together in this little band with, again, that same emblem on it. So for the programs, we've got first A Momentary Lapse of Reason. We've got Delicate Sound of Thunder. And they all have like this moleskin rubberized plastic coating on them, which is really, really pleasant to the touch, but is going to wear out over time, and, well, more on that to come in just a moment. Here's the lyric book. And when I had this on my knee, as you can see right there, that little smudge where my thumb is, yeah, it's already starting to wear off that rubberized coating, which is frustrating, but I think I know how to prevent it from getting any worse. Momentary Lapse of Reason. We're on to the Division Bell. And most of this imagery is stuff that we've all seen before, emblems and whatnot, that were mostly replicated in the Discovery box set. And then we've got the Endless River, which of course only has one song with lyrics on it. And then finally we've got the Division Bell. First few pages are like rough matte paper, and then we get to this more like glossy finish stuff. Stuff from the tour designers. Pink Floyd trivia quiz, which I did take, and it said if you got 30 to 50 right, you have all the albums but no friends, which I suppose is somewhat true. And if you got all of them right, then it said you're this is unhealthy. So I guess I felt all right about that. Yeah, there was some stuff in there that I was actually not aware of or did not know. Now we've got the photo book, which has some incredibly thick cardstock here. This is like millimeter thick cardstock right here. So the book looks a lot thicker than it actually is, but it is gorgeous. So a collection of artwork and stage designs, photos of the band, etc., etc. And the booklet that comes with the vinyl highlights LP from this box set is basically a truncated version of this without a hardback cover. Now we've got our memorabilia envelope, which has some like little fragments of everything that's in it. Memorabilia written on the back with this little latch thing. Oh yeah, here is the hype sheet that was originally on the back of the box set. Definitely did not want to get rid of that. And if we pull it out, we've got our two 7-inch singles. This one is Arnold Lane, and there's two variants of each single with the different etching on the back. This one has the little Piper at the Gates of Dawn back cover thing. We've got Lost for Words from Pulse Tour Rehearsal. And on the back of this one of them has the arms. I got the one with the division bell heads, which I think is much cooler, so I was happy I got that one. And then we've got our various posters and what you've come to expect with these Pink Floyd box sets at this point. So what's in here? We've got Concert from Versailles, Delicate Sound of Thunder Tour. Is this the Venice concert? Earl's Court. And then a 1989 tour sticker and a 94 tour sticker. And then a sticker sheet. And then we've got 4 different posters here. We've got a Momentary Lapse of Reason tour. We've got Delicate Sound of Thunder tour in Russia or something. We've got the Venice concert. This one I really like. I actually think this one is pretty cool. And then we've got the Division Bell in, where is this, Argentina? Or Canada, maybe. Is this Olympic Stadium? Okay. Alright, so there's our memorabilia envelope, and then at the bottom we finally get to the disc. So here's our CD and credits book, which, while a cool idea, my one gripe with it is that it doesn't have proper disc holders. It's got these stupid little foam buttons, which just drive me insane. I've got a Momentary Lapse of Reason remixed, Delicate Sound of Thunder remixed with additional tracks, and then in the back side we've got live B-sides and the Division Bell outtakes, and then the Nebworth concert, which has been remixed. List of discs at the back, and then just exactly what it says it is, 40 pages of credits. Which, I must admit, as weird and geeky as this is, I actually think the graphic design of this is really cool, and definitely preferable to the stupid little staple-bound credit booklets that were in the Immersion box set. This one actually looks really cool. And of course, since most of the content is repeated on DVD and Blu-ray, for the DVDs you just get the track list and it says for additional credits, see disc, etc. And then we've got our DVDs and Blu-rays. The Blu-rays are on top, and I must admit, I really, really like the way these were packaged. I think this looks super cool with each one in a little gatefold wallet. So this is the one that's Blu-ray only. This is the surround and high-res audio mixes. Delicate Sound of Thunder, restored and remixed. Pulse, restored and re-edited. Venice and Nebworth. Music videos, concert screen films, and unreleased live films, including the Pulse tour rehearsal and the bonus tracks from Delicate Sound of Thunder, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction with Billy Corgan, which was very weird. And then documentaries and unreleased live material. This also has the Endless River film on it. And now here's everything, the same things on DVD. Here's Delicate Sound of Thunder. I do think it's cool that each disc got its own unique artwork. I do really like that, I must admit. Pulse, Venice and Nebworth, music videos, concert screen films, and unreleased live films, and documentaries and unreleased material. And so that is everything that's in this massive box set. Alright, now that we've seen this box set, where to begin? With the story, I suppose. When this thing was first announced back in 2019, I was still a college student, and there was absolutely no way in hell I could afford it. What I did do is I found a box on eBay that was just the tour programs and the ephemera and all the whatever stuff and the cardboard spacers with just the CDs, but it didn't have the DVDs or Blu-ray because obviously the guy was selling them off separately. But I was able to pick that up for like 80 bucks. So I did, and I just hoped that eventually the Blu-rays would either be broken out of the box set or would come down in price enough that I could purchase them separately. And while to some extent that has happened, and there have been breakouts from the box set, for a variety of reasons that just never became feasible. And so, while there have been a number of breakouts of the material in this box set, including A Momentary Lapse of Reason, Pulse, Delicate Sound of Thunder, and just the audio portion of Nebworth, I haven't actually picked any of that stuff up over the years because I was always hoping I would get it all in one hit. And eventually, the thing that started this entire excursion into Pink Floyd was picking up Pulse and Delicate Sound of Thunder on VHS from a record store and watching those. And while of course it was awful quality because it was VHS, it was very interesting. I had seen Pulse before, but never Delicate Sound of Thunder. And it made me really, really want to get these restored versions to see how good they sounded in surround sound, as well as see the, of course, improved picture quality. And eventually I went on Amazon like a few days after I had watched them, and I saw that there was an import from Japan for less than $300, which, given that the retail price of the box was $430, and it's still going for much more than that in many cases for brand new copies, I quickly dived on it and just got it. And I made sure that the discs were region free before I purchased it, so that obviously I wouldn't run into any issues there. And they were, so no problem. And so I ordered that copy from Japan. I said there was only 2 copies left, and I'm sure glad I did, because as soon as I ordered mine, the very next day, the single copy that remained was up to a price of almost $500. So I definitely dodged quite a bullet there. It took 5 years for this to come down in price to a point where I could actually afford it with all of the correct content inside of it. So that's completely unacceptable, and I guess that's the biggest downfall of the box set, is the price. The box itself is gorgeous, and I very much enjoyed most of the content in it. We'll talk more about packaging in a moment, but the price at its original recommended retail price was just prohibitively expensive. And even at the reduced price I paid for it, it's still too expensive for the actual amount of visual and audio content that's in there, which is just a real shame because it's really got some fascinating stuff in there, and it is quite a gorgeous luxury item, which I'm sure is why it costs so much, and I can't imagine the manufacturing costs for something with that many components in it versus something that was a little bit simpler or assembled more cheaply. So at its original recommended retail price of $450 to $470, I mean, at that price, it gets a very well-deserved 0 out of 5 because there's just nothing that can justify paying that much for less than, I don't know, I think it's probably all around 12 hours of content in all, in terms of actual audio and visual material. And it's just unacceptable to be paying that much, and I do think it's extortion, and I do think it was wrong that they would ever charge that much for it. Obviously, they could have reduced the price if they had done a couple things differently. They could have made the package a lot simpler. They could have just done a single book that had the replica tour programs in it and just had the discs and little cardboard wallets, and they certainly did not need to reproduce everything on Blu-ray and on DVD. So if they had done that, they probably could have reduced the price down to like $250. But at the same time, the way the box is packaged is one of the things that's cool about it. So let's move on to the packaging. Now, I could be the guy that would say it's ridiculous, we don't need these tour programs, we don't need these posters. The 7-inch vinyl singles really are head scratchers. You just wonder why those 2 songs were thrown in, or maybe just because they're not on the CDs anywhere. Real strange inclusions, that. And then the fact that everything is on DVD and Blu-ray, and the credits book, it's very weird and unusual design. The thing is, I really like it. I think it looks really cool, and it was quite a pleasure to open it up and go through all the stuff. I really enjoyed flipping through those tour programs. I really enjoyed watching everything. I really enjoyed the credits book. I thought it was really cool the way it was done. So unfortunately, that leaves the option of, well, they have to charge an extortionate price for it, even though the content within it is perhaps not worth that price. The thing is, as I've said, there have been a number of breakouts over the years, which I had not picked up because I was waiting to get them all in a single hit. So there's a Momentary Lapse of Reason remix that was released on DVD and on Blu-ray and vinyl. Nebworth was released on CD and on vinyl. Delicate Sound of Thunder was released on vinyl, a Blu-ray, and then a package that had a Blu-ray and the CDs in it. And I had been tempted to pick those things up over the years. Oh yes, and Pulse has been released on Blu-ray as well. But I never went for it because I just wanted to wait till I could get the whole thing, because I always assumed that someday it might happen. And thankfully it finally did, and I got it for a price that, while I still think is too expensive, I certainly felt a lot less bad about dropping $300 on this thing than $450. That's still too much, but it was fairly reasonable to me. And I did enjoy going through it. I really, really enjoyed it, and I liked the content a lot. So I guess we'll go through the content in the order that it's presented, starting with A Momentary Lapse of Reason. As I said in Chapter 2, having heard the remix when it first came out, and then not hearing it again after that, when I heard the 3 tracks that were included on the sampler compilation, particularly one, Slip, as soon as it came in, I was like, oh, wow, this is very, very different. And listening to the whole record all the way through, yeah, it's significantly different from the original. A lot less of that 80s sheen on it. A heck of a lot more bass, maybe too much bass. More Hammond organ, which I guess was always there, and they've just tried to like reinstate Rick's contributions to the record. and of course re-recorded drums by Nick Mason. And so it's very interesting that on the one hand, this does sound more like a Pink Floyd record. It does sound more like Nick Mason and Richard Wright are a part of the proceedings, even if it's kind of a revisionist history, if you like. But the downside is that it does lose some of its punch and some of its sparkle that it had on the original. Because I've always really liked A Momentary Lapse of Reason. I think it's a great album. And it's very, very different now. But different, not in a bad way, but just in a different way. And so the surround sound mix was really, really good. I enjoyed the surround sound mix. It just makes me wonder, would it have sounded better in surround sound if they had kept all of the keyboards and electronic drums and stuff that were on it before? I have to wonder that. But anyway, it is fascinating, and I do think it's worth hearing. I'm not sure if it's available on streaming platforms, just the stereo mix. And if not, then you can certainly pick up the LP or the CD and DVD version. And it's well worth checking out. Particularly if you have the same reservation that I do, that A Momentary Lapse of Reason, while it is a great album, the original version really does not sound like a Pink Floyd album at all. It sounds like a David Gilmour solo album with a lot of 80s gloss on it. But it is a great album, and making it sound more like a Pink Floyd album I don't think was a bad move. I certainly don't think this replaces the original record, though. I don't think it's better than the original record. I think it's an interesting alternate perspective on what that album could have sounded like. So it is well worth checking out. So that remix, 5 out of 5, because I did enjoy listening to it. And while it is missing some of the punches and certain things that it had before, I do like Nick Mason's new playing on it. I do like hearing more of the Hammond organ, because I'm a big Hammond organ fan. And while it maybe makes it sound less 80s and more 70s in a way, it actually dates it less, in my opinion. It doesn't sound as carbon dated to the 80s as the original record did. So I really enjoyed it. Okay, next we have Delicate Sound of Thunder restored and remixed. Having seen the VHS version and then seeing this, which is restored from film and is blown up to 16:9 widescreen, it was phenomenal. It looked absolutely outstanding, and I thought the 5.1 surround mix was really good. In Darren Locke's review of this box set, he said that it's more of an open band performance, and you see a lot more of what the other musicians are doing. Now, I certainly haven't A-B'd the edit with the original version, but that definitely seemed like the case to me. You see a lot more of what the other musicians on stage are doing. And the one thing in this box set that I never get tired of, despite it's included like 5 times, is The Great Gig in the Sky. I always love watching them do that, and I really like that the 3 backing vocalists get their chance in the spotlight. And on the Nebworth version, Claire Torrey herself, the original vocalist, gets to have her go at it, and I just really enjoy that. I love that the vocals really get a big spotlight there, and they just have a lot of fun, and they make it their own. And I don't think they overdo it. Maybe they overdo it a little bit, but you can tell they really get into it and have some fun with it, and it's just great. That's my favorite thing to watch them do on this entire box set, is the different versions of Great Gig in the Sky. I really, really enjoyed that. Pulse was restored from tape, so it doesn't look as good, but it sounds fine, and this is the original stereo and 5.1 mix that James Guthrie did. I never had the DVD version, but the 5.1 mix sounds great, and the show looks fantastic. It's as close as I could ever come to having been there at that just epic, crazy production. And you know, this kind of leads me on to, while this box set maybe doesn't tell a story, and it is kind of a pieces and parts box set, what I do like about it, and I'm probably going to upset some of the same people I upset before, is that the musicianship is front and center here. And I do think, while even on, you know, of course, Wish You Were Here and Animals, there's a lot of great musicianship, it's clear that they're becoming, it's just clear that Roger at that point was taking over the band, and The Wall especially is very much a Roger project, and the whole live thing, as much as I'd love to see that live Earl's Court footage of The Wall, like, it's very much a musical theater piece, and it's not so much just a good rock show. And I like the fact that Pink Floyd is back to just delivering a great rock show. And you could argue that both of those tours, Lapse and Division Bell, they're just taking victory laps, capitalizing on one of the biggest and most successful back catalogs in history. And that's not wrong. And you know what? I think that the band that they played with live, both the three musicians in Pink Floyd and the people that they had on stage with them, were such good players that Pink Floyd really did deserve to take a victory lap and just do a completely over-the-top, overblown, massive rock and roll show. And it looks really cool. I enjoyed it a lot. I really enjoyed watching all of the Dark Side of the Moon as part of Pulse. The Comfortably Numb sequence in Pulse was just outstanding with the mirror ball in the middle and just hearing him Gilmour go for like 4 minutes, just uninterrupted soloing. It's really, really spectacular. And for someone that was never there, it's as close as I'll ever come. So I truly enjoyed that. The Venice and Knebworth concerts. So Venice was interesting because they're playing on a floating barge. Good performance. Knebworth, maybe not as good because it looks like they got rained out. But like I said, the highlight of the Knebworth show, no question about it, is getting to watch Great Gig in the Sky with Claire Torrey doing her thing on it. Those both look great. I'd never seen either of them before, so they were both enjoyable to watch. And then we get to the more of the contentious stuff with the documentaries and unreleased material. So you get bonus tracks from Delicate Sound of Thunder. Again, maybe a missed opportunity. They could have just put that on the Delicate Sound of Thunder disc or re-edited back into the full concert performance, but they've included them separately. You get Pulse Tour Rehearsal, which is interesting, but not a buying point. The concert screen films were very interesting in this case. I'm not sure how necessary they were, because in Pulse and Delicate Sound of Thunder, you do see a lot of that as part of the edit anyway, but I guess it's nice to see just the films and see if they stand up on their own. And the one for Shine On You Crazy Diamond from '94 was pretty interesting. And I do love the Ian Eames Time animation on the '94 Division Bell concert screen films. So more of a hodgepodge kind of, it's in there because it can be item, but it was nice to watch. The music videos were cool. I had never seen any of those music videos before, just whatever fragments of them were used on stage. Like I had seen the cape imagery and stuff from High Hopes, but those were cool to watch. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, I actually had seen that before on YouTube, and it was just very bizarre. Billy Corgan is quite a divisive figure in rock and roll lore. I'm actually a big fan. I think he's great, but it was a very strange induction, and Richard and David, when they did Wish You Were Here with Him, they just, quite frankly, looked like they were not enthused to be there, which really was what I enjoyed about the other concert footage here, was that on the Knebworth stuff and on Delicate and Pulse, they look like they're having a ball, man. They look like they're having a ton of fun on stage, and it's just pleasant to watch as an audience member. Not so much that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing, but it's cool that it's in there. The big missed opportunity, of course, the one thing that from this period, 87 to 2019, that they could have included and didn't, maybe for personal reasons, maybe for contractual reasons or copyright reasons, was the Live Aid performance with Roger Waters. That would have been nice to have in there. Restored, but oh well, it's fine. It's not in there, but it's on YouTube. You can go watch it anyway. And then the last Blu-ray disc has the documentaries, which is just a bunch of random stuff. Interviews about the album covers, and the behind the scenes stuff with the Division Bell tour was probably the most interesting on that thing. I liked that a lot. I liked hearing from the people who worked on that tour, including Phil Taylor, Andy Jackson, Mark Fisher, and just hearing what they had to say about it, and the different venues and the crazy, massive production that they did on it, which it was fun to hear them talk about that and just talk about what it was like to be part of Floyd's live team. The Endless River film. So I don't own a copy of the Endless River outside of this box set. I streamed it when it came out. I was so excited when it first came out, because I had just gotten into Pink Floyd, and I'm like, oh cool, brand new Pink Floyd music. And I had heard all 14 of the studio albums, and then I streamed The Endless River, and I was very unenthused with it. It was not bad, it just was not that interesting to me, and I still don't think it's that interesting after not having heard it for 5 years. I still think it's really boring and just there's some cool moments on it, and I do like the song Louder Than Words, but it doesn't really go anywhere. It's just this real weird ambient piece, and having the film on top of it. Well, the film, it's hard to imagine anything could make the sound more boring, but the film is just incredibly boring. That was a major disappointment. It was just weird. I didn't care for it. I just thought it was strange. It was like the concert screen films, but even more esoteric and bizarre. There's no real story or anything. It's just a bunch of random images. It just, yeah, I didn't care much for that. But the surround sound mix was enjoyable. I did like listening to the surround sound mix because, again, I did not buy the set that has the CD and surround Blu-ray in it. So hearing the surround sound mix, albeit with these rather bizarre and unenthusing visuals, was still good. I enjoyed listening to it in surround sound. That said, I still don't really consider it a real Pink Floyd album. I do think it was not a cash grab, but just a bit of an odd idea for a project. But hey, you know, it is what it is. Maybe some of you really like the Endless River, which is fine. I don't dislike it. I just didn't. It's just not that interesting. What else? CD wise, you get Delicate Sound of Thunder remixed with expanded and everything. All the individual songs are worked back into the set list. So some stuff that you get that is not on the original version. Well, you get the 5 remaining tracks from A Momentary Lapse of Reason. So in fact, the whole album is represented, including One Slip, which is just fantastic. That was part of the film, but not the original album. I just love that song. I love One Slip so much. And you also get Welcome to the Machine, which is really, really good. I enjoyed that a lot, and this new mix does sound significantly better than the original. On CD4, you get some bonus live B-sides, which were interesting, not a buying point. You get the outtakes from the Division Bell, which are, I guess, a little more structured and less ambient than the Endless River, but they're still kind of in the same vein. The real buying point there is the High Hopes early version, which is included on the sampler album, so I had heard that before, but I really do enjoy that early version. The 5.1 mixes of those sound good, but ironically, they sounded the best to me, because when I listened to the surround sound mixes disc, I had not owned the Division Bell 20th anniversary, so I had never heard the Division Bell 5.1 mix either. The A Momentary Lapse of Reason remix seems to overdo the bass, and the the Division Bell remix seems to underdo it. It felt like that mix was not making proper use of the subwoofer. The effects and the keyboards and everything, it sounded great. It felt like it lacked punch. It didn't feel like the subwoofer was really used. Like, you want to feel that kick drum come through your subwoofer when you're listening in 5.1, you know? And it sounded like it wasn't. It was just kind of, instead of, it was more like less interesting. Didn't much care for that, but I did like them. I suppose I could just boost the controls on it, but I didn't want to do that. So the best sounding mixes were of the least boring material, or the most boring material, which was the outtakes from the Division Bell. And then you get the stereo remix of Nebworth on CD as well. So a lot of repeated content. I did decide to check out the stereo mixes of the concert films. I have a smaller TV upstairs with just a DVD player on it and a sound bar, pretty good sound bar, and so I wanted to listen to the stereo mixes of the concert films up there, which I did last night. Only the stuff that had double mixes did I listen to, but on DVD, you know, it still looks fine. But for whatever reason, disc 14, I must have a faulty one. It started skipping in the middle of the Nebworth concert, and I tried to clean it, and it just seems like I made it worse. But hey, you know what? I guess sometimes this is why I'm happy that they did duplicate the content, because while the DVD doesn't work, at least the Blu-ray does, and the Blu-ray looked good, and the 5.1 mix was good, and it has the stereo mix and higher resolution anyway. Just frustrating that you pay all this money for a box set and one of the discs is faulty, even if it's a disc that was really largely unnecessary in the first place. But anyway, I digress. Other than that, it was a pleasant experience. So there's so many criticisms, valid criticisms, that you can make of this box set as a product. which I would be the first one to make if I had not enjoyed it so much. I really did enjoy going through it. I loved watching all the concert footage. I enjoyed the Momentary Lapse of Reason remix. I enjoyed hearing The Division Bell in 5.1. I even enjoyed some of the weird odds and ends documentary stuff. The only thing that I really did not care for was the Endless River film, because the Endless River in general is just not an album I find that interesting. But everything else I really enjoyed watching, and I enjoyed looking at the tour programs and the photo books, and I thought it was a pleasant product to interact with, and really felt like a luxury collector's item, which is why it demands luxury collector's prices. I'm not justifying the price. I still think it's too high. I am happy that they've broken some of the stuff out of it so that people that don't want to buy everything have an opportunity to still hear some of this restored and remixed content, which is good. But that said, okay, so packaging, price, and just, I guess, some missed opportunities in terms of the way it's presented. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5, which I think is pretty generous. Had it been like maybe $100 cheaper, even than what I paid for it, had it been a $200 box set with all the same stuff in it, it would get a 5 out of 5, no question about it. But that price is just a big factor, given the actual amount of like hours of listening and watching content, you know? But I did enjoy it. And to bring this conversation around to like the Pink Floyd story, you know, I got one person that was really upset with me when I criticized Roger in chapter 1, and you know, it makes sense, but I do maintain that he's said publicly that he's not that interested in the music, that the message is more important to him. And I think that's very clear on the wall, and it's extremely clear on the final cut. And I do think that they became a better band without him. Not necessarily that they made better music, but they were a better band. And those musicians on stage were listening to each other, interacting with each other. And just to see how far that they had come from those early psychedelic noodling days. I mean, you watch the earlier box set, and you see them playing Interstellar Overdrive for 10 minutes. I mean, it's just almost impossible to imagine that 30 years later, they would be playing these gigantic arena gigs with crazy lights, but like actual high quality musicianship, man. The musicianship on these DVDs and Blu-rays was just top notch. I really enjoyed watching the people that played with them. John Carr and Guy Pratt, Gary Wallace. I mean, these younger guys, you can see that they really are just having a ball on stage and putting a lot of energy into the music. And Gilmour's voice sounds great. He's just a better singer than Waters. He is. There's no question about it. I mean, it's not even close. It's not even close. And so to hear him take over and really like sing these lyrics that I still maintain I think are really good. I like all the lyrics on Lapse and on Division Bell. I just was very moved by it, and to see them do these things that are more musical in their nature, you know, coming back to life and Take It Back. I love those songs. One Slip, I love that song. And even some of the instrumental stuff, Terminal Frost, I really enjoy. I thought it was great. And is it what you associate with Pink Floyd, really? I mean, I guess not really, but, you know, I think they made the right choice to continue, and I think the last 7 years of their career were some of the best years of their career, because their musicianship took center stage, and that is the main thing that speaks to me. Yes, I like stuff that is conceptual and has deeper meanings behind it, and I do think the stuff on particularly Division Bell has a lot of deep meaning behind it. Just because it's not about politics, or it's not about like the atrocities of rock and roll and isolation and yada yada yada, does not mean it isn't meaningful. It's very meaningful, just in a different way. And I really, really, really enjoyed it. So I am glad I bought the box set. I'm glad I got to see all this stuff. I really enjoyed the new mixes of everything. And I really enjoyed spending the last few days just taking a deep dive into that particular part of their career, because I thought it was great. So to wrap up, overall, the Pink Floyd stuff, I mean, they're one of the greatest bands in the planet, and they have one of the most jagged and non-linear stories that you can think of, especially post 85 when Rogers left. But they made some absolutely phenomenal music along the way. They took a lot of wrong turns in the early days. They kind of found their sound, and once they did, they took the world by storm. And I still love that music. So overall, of everything I've talked about in this series, what are some things that you should really pick up or check out if you haven't, or you're a newer Floyd fan, and maybe or haven't done the deep dive yet? So, I mean, certainly check out the 14 original albums. The Discovery box set's a great way to pick them up. You can also get them on vinyl. You can also, God forbid, stream them. Whatever tickles your fancy. But certainly check out all 14 of the original albums. Okay, 13. Don't listen to the final cut. Don't listen to it. Trust me, you'll regret it. If you've never heard it, you will regret it. Maybe you won't. I don't know. So 13 of their 14 original albums are all definitely worth checking out. And in terms of some of this archival stuff, we'll certainly get the Dark Side of the Moon Blu-ray. The 5.1 mix is absolutely outstanding. The making of documentary is well worth checking out. Again, streaming is fine. The Wish You Were Here documentary is well worth checking out. Can't really recommend anything else in the Wish You Were Here box set just because it was too expensive and just not enough content. The Wall Live is certainly worth checking out. Those demo discs on the Wall box set were really, really fascinating, but I think you have to be a lot more of a diehard fan to get value out of those. And then in terms of later material, you know, the archival stuff. Well, the later years and the early years, these are the two big archive box sets. I really enjoyed going through both of them. The early years is quite pricey, but you can get some of the individual volumes separately. The ones that I would recommend most are 1970 and maybe 1967, and 1969 and 1970 are the two that are most interesting, where you hear them in this very bizarre developmental transition period, which I really like. So those two were the most exciting for me. And then in terms of the later years, I mean, that Momentary Lapse of Reason is definitely worth checking out. And Pulse and Delicate Sound of Thunder, if you haven't seen them, the Blu-rays are kind of expensive. They go for like $50 each, I think. But if you don't want to buy the whole box set, Delicate Sound of Thunder and Pulse are still very worth checking out. Both great concert films, both great live albums. So that's what I've got to say. If you've watched all the way through the series, thank you so much. Hopefully I shed some light on something, or just gave some alternate opinions based on what you think if you already own all this stuff and just wanted to hear what someone else said about it. And if you don't own any of this stuff, or are not that familiar with like the deep archive of Pink Floyd, then hopefully you have a better sense of some things that you should check out and what value you may or may not get from it. But if nothing else, if you've watched this far and have never heard any Pink Floyd albums, then certainly check out Piper, Metal, Dark Side, Wish You Were Here, and Animals. Those five, I cannot recommend them enough. They're 5 of the coolest albums ever made. Metal in particular is still my all-time favorite, and it's great. It was really fun to go through this catalog again. That said, I will now not listen to Pink Floyd for probably several years. Okay. Enough. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Bye.